And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Debrief. Bob Bianchi, Misty Maris in the house. We've got a lot to talk about. Damaging testimony in the case of a Georgia man accused of helping burn the body of a beauty queen in his family's orchard. Bo Dukes is charged with concealing the death of teacher and pageant competitor Tara Grinstead. Dukes is further charged with making a false statement and hindering apprehension in Wilcox County, Georgia. He faces other charges in another county. A co-defendant is charged with Grinstead's actual murder. Testimony in this case is pushing into the evening, so let's take you right back live to that courtroom in Georgia.
With these instructions, and that is that you're not to discuss the case with anyone. Don't allow anyone to discuss it in your presence, in your hearing, and don't discuss it among yourselves until I give you instructions to do so. Now, let me just add this. When you're going and coming from the jury room here in the courthouse, just be careful.
All right, as the day has progressed, they decided to end right the second we decided to bring you there into court. We thought this was going to push very late like it did yesterday, so let's move along with the Tara Grinstead case. Late yesterday, prosecutors revealed for the first time that they found some of Grinstead's charred remains, but that it took 2 searches to find the right spot. Here are some of the prosecution's opening statements.
Bo and Ryan go out to the pecan orchard where they move the body. They move the body to the pecan orchard and they burn her body down to human bones and ashes. And they say that they killed her. And they burned her body. Garland, being one of their friends in their peer group, was very disturbed by what they said. And Garland reported it to local law enforcement. You'll hear evidence about the murder, but that's not what we're here to do. You'll hear that Ryan left his glove outside of Tara's residence at 300 West Park, out in Osceola, that has his DNA and Tara's DNA on that glove. You're going to see blood that was left on Tara's comforter. But this case is not about her murder. This case is about lies. This defendant's lies. This case is about his secrets, his denial. That's what this case is about.
The state was careful to tell jurors that a co-defendant is charged with the actual killing. The defense did the same, but also said the defendant's conduct did not violate the strict letter of the law as charged in this case. The defense urged jurors to pay close attention to testimony to separate accusation from fact. The mother of the defendant's girlfriend testified that Bo Dukes confessed to her that he was involved with the crime. That discussion came after some family turmoil.
If we wanted to see our daughter, if we wanted to celebrate holidays, if we wanted to be around her, we had to allow Bo back in the house because those were her stipulations, that Bo was the love of her life and he was part of her life, and if we didn't want him in her home, she would not come into our home.
What did you ask him?
Basically was what Brooke told us true. Had he helped to dispose of Tara's body? And he said yes. Why didn't he tell people? And he said that he had told people over the years, but not law enforcement. And I asked him specifically why Ryan killed her.
What did he say?
He said he never asked him why.
Did you ever ask Bo if he was responsible for the murder of Tara Grinstead?
Maybe not in so many words. Kind of like, are you sure that's all there is to it? It was just so hard for me to fathom the whole thing anyway. It was like living in a surreal bubble, but he assured me otherwise.
And you said earlier that you essentially asked him if the things that Brooke had told you were true. Mm-hmm. What was his response to that?
It was that it was true. Things that he told me were that he had helped to dispose of the body, that they had burned it in the pecan orchard, that he had been there that night when it all happened, or, you know, when they burned the body, and that it had been his truck that was used to transport the body.
According to testimony, Bo Dukes was confessing to pretty much everybody, including to an Army buddy.
I had mentioned something about seeing a billboard, and it had a really, really pretty lady that was on it. And I was like, man, that's crazy. You know, what's going on with that? He had brought it up and said, do you remember that billboard that you had seen? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I know what happened. And then I was like kind of shocked with that and was like, what? And he said that his friend had showed up and said, man, I fucked up. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, he continued to tell me that he had, you know, messed up and he needed his help. He needed his truck.
His friend needed Bo's help, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He had said that he had technically killed Tara to him.
The friend had said that?
Yes, that he had beat her and accidentally strangled her and killed her, and he didn't know what to do. So he needed his truck to be able to move her body.
And did Bo Dukes tell you if he loaned his truck to his friend?
He said that he had went with his friend and used the truck. He had said that they had went and recovered the body, and they continued to take it to the middle of his grandpa's, or the Hudson Pecan Orchard. And the exact location didn't tell me, but had made the comment of, you know, we took her to the middle of the pecan orchard and burned her body. And if I can roll back a little bit, whenever I was in basic training, he had made the comment, which now it made sense, of the sense of, hey man, it takes more than 1,200 degrees to burn human bones.
When he said that they burned her body in the pecan orchard, was this with Bo Dukes and his buddy?
Yes, sir.
And did he tell you how long they burned her body?
No, sir, he didn't disclose that, no.
Did he tell you anything else about that?
Just the sense that they burned her body and let it burn as long as they could, and whenever they were satisfied, they buried the rest.
The brother of co-defendant Ryan Duke testified he heard something similar at a party.
Said you were at a party. You can't recall that date.
No.
It was just cold.
It was just cold. I just remember having a fire.
Okay. Where was that party? What was the address?
It was at a friend of ours' house, a mutual friend.
Who was that friend?
Ben and Hank McMahon. It was their house.
Okay. And it's your testimony that after Mr. Dukes told you that your brother, Ryan Dukes, had killed Tara Grinstead, you didn't have any further questions for him about it?
No, sir. I figured he was joking, kidding, just trying to get under my skin.
You knew Miss Grinstead was missing?
Yes.
You knew folks would?
Yes.
My guests tonight are the Dean of Criminal Defense Attorneys, Bob Bianchi himself, and the preeminent Misty Maris, both here. So seems to me this guy's going down. Okay, we've got witness after witness after witness saying this defendant talked to me about being present, being involved here.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Aaron. It seems like there's multiple people coming forward with the same type of story. Now, if you had one person saying it, that's one thing. But you have multiple people saying the same thing, it's going to be a problem. But I do think from a defense perspective, exactly what you said was highlighted in the opening statement. You have to separate this from the Ryan Dukes case, and that's from the Ryan Duke case, and that's really the only shot the defense is going to have here.
Bob, what do you make of it?
Yeah, and one of the interesting things here from a legal point of view is that you can't use Ryan Duke's statement in this case because he has a right to remain silent, and that would violate the confrontation clause in the Bo Duke case. But like Misty said, you have so many random people coming up with the same story where they don't really seem to have a motive to lie. If anything, they had a motive to protect the people that were telling the story. That's going to make a very difficult case for the defense.
Yeah, I mean, but again, I mean, we've got the state having her remains. It took 2 searches, but they eventually found the remains of Tara Grinstead. So they have evidence to back up what this defendant was telling his buddies he was involved with. You've got statements to multiple people. You've got physical evidence. This is a strong case for the state.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, every time you have a statement case, you always got to worry about the motivation, the jury charge that the Judge Aaron gives at the end of the case, which typically is that you got to take oral statements of people very suspect because a change or nuance in a word or the way they say it is one thing. But when you have corroborating physical evidence that doesn't lie, that backs up that statement, it's pretty darn good. I know I'm jumping ahead to the next trial here, but Misty, how does someone accidentally strangle someone?
Well, that's something I've been trying to figure out. I don't know.
Figure it out because
I'm going to test it on you, my friend.
No, not that. All right. We've got another case to move along to now. The Florida man accused of murdering his father, chopping up the body, and burying it on a golf course today took the stand in his own defense. James Scandarito Jr. faces the charges but does not face the death penalty. Prosecutors say the defendant took his father's money, had 2 passports, lined up a private plane. The defense, however, says Scandarito and his father, who used to be a judge, were dealing drugs. The defense wants the jury to believe the father died after taking drugs and that James Jr. merely chopped him up so that authorities wouldn't find out about the drugs. The defendant himself described how he claims he cut up his father's body.
Have you decided in your mind what you're going to have to do?
I have.
And what was that?
That I'm going to have to dismember my dad to be able to move him out of the house. I rolled the dolly over when I am doing the dismembering of the extremities. There's a space in front of the, of course you've seen it all many times, in front of the refrigerator when you come out of the garage on the left side, and if you're looking on the left side of the garage, there's a space there. So I had laid a clear tarp down. The dolly was on top of the tarp, and then I had another tarp that went over over the top of the dolly and the plastic tarp that was underneath the dolly.
Okay. And so when you are actually cutting him, you're using what?
A saw.
Okay. An electric saw or a hand saw?
No, it's a handsaw.
And when you are actually cutting him, are you doing that underneath the top part?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because I can't look at what I'm doing. I just can't.
Is the jury going to believe this at all? Next, the defendant talks about the mechanics of cutting up his father's body. Remember, he claims his father died after taking drugs.
I take a garbage bag and I kind of cover the part that is being dismembered. So when the arm, let's say, is finally dismembered, it's kind of falls into the garbage bag.
And with those garbage bags individually, what did you do with them?
When I eventually ended up putting them all into 3 suitcases. Maybe it's not, physically strenuous, but, it wasn't, it was not something that it was a quick, it was a long time. I would take frequent breaks, go out through the garage door, into the outside of the house, the side of the house, smoke cigarettes, and just, wish that this nightmare wasn't happening.
A DNA analyst yesterday testified that the victim's DNA was on a box in his own garage. Earlier on in this case, police testified about finding that box in a suspiciously clean portion of the garage and how several items in the area tested positive for the presumptive presence of blood. DNA results on 2 suitcases police watched the defendant throw into a dumpster were either inconclusive or could not exclude the father as a contributor. Not as strong a match as authorities had hoped on the suitcases, but the defendant basically connected the dots. Back to Bob Bianchi and Misty Maris on this one. Big question here, Misty. Not much emotion from this guy. He had a couple of random sniffles in there, but this was choreographed, it seemed to me.
Absolutely. As I was sitting here watching this, Aaron, I was thinking to myself, if there was any possibility his story was true, how could there be such a calculated response without emotion? I don't think the jury's going to buy it.
Bob Bianchi, were you buying any of this?
No, and I think that they made a big mistake, Aaron. I said this before. Yesterday when we were analyzing this case, I knew this guy would take the stand because he's got that megalomaniac, narcissistic personality issue. He wanted to be chatty, chatty, chatty with the police. But the defense scored major points on the medical examiner yesterday because there's no doubt he chopped his father up. No, that's not the issue. The issue is whether he killed him. And the medical examiner got crushed, in my opinion. And when you stand well, stand still. He got up on that stand. He gave the prosecution good facts. He came off really creepy and odd, and I don't think he made a very positive impact. He may have reversed what do they say? Grabbed defeat from the jaws of victory.
Exactly. Okay, so is it a sound legal strategy to try to beat a murder charge by basically pleading to dismemberment and then hoping the jury likes you?
Yeah, well, get to that part. It's a great question, Aaron, because the only best argument the prosecution has in the case, especially in light of the medical testimony, is it makes no sense that you would have chose to chop him up and go through all that effort rather than get rid of the drugs that you were worried about. Him getting up there and doing what he did today did not make him likable or believable.
Misty Maris, where's the head?
That's what I was asking. And what I would be thinking, though, if I'm in the jury box, I'd say, the fact that he puts all of these body parts into the shed, obviously wants to hide them, but then takes special care to put the head somewhere else. What does that mean? Is there blunt force trauma? Is there something that would have just completely undercut the natural causes?
Gosh, I can't wait to see the rest of this roll out. Testimony in this case continuing tomorrow, and still ahead tonight here on The Debrief, a possible plea deal for the NFL owner being accused in Florida of soliciting prostitution. Also, a son's police interrogation on charges he murdered his mother. We take you back inside the courtroom in just a moment. Prosecutors are offering a deal in the prostitution case against the owner of the New England Patriots. Authorities in Palm Beach County, Florida, have reportedly offered Robert Kraft a deferred prosecution deal. Here's what it means. If Kraft pleads no contest, he would have to complete an education course, 100 hours of community service, undergo STD screenings, and pay court costs. That would be the penalty. A spokesperson for Kraft, however, has denied he did anything illegal. The defense now has the case of an Iowa farmer accused of murdering his mother over money. Prosecutors say Jason Carter killed Shirley Carter and then staged the scene to look like a robbery. The defense said during openings that friends and family would testify that Carter loved his mother and that the family got along well. That claim seems to have backfired because of derogatory testimony about the defendant from a friend and from his own father, the husband of the victim. Last week, jurors heard portions of the defendant's frantic police interrogation. Here, he describes finding his mother's body.
He just knelt down and said, "Oh, Mama." And he grabbed hold of her leg and put his head down on her.
So, Jason went, you just, the only part you thought you just touched her on the leg?
Yeah, I put my hand on her leg and shook her and said, "Mom."
Was she cold to the touch?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was stiff.
So,
oh my God, shit! Oh shit, there's nothing, shit! There's nothing to do, nothing I can't help her. I can't help her. There's nothing I could do. I couldn't even think of breathing life back into her. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Oh. Take your time.
Nothing to apologize for.
Yeah, take your time.
I can't get her. I can't get out. a picture over my head. Holy crap. I'm laying there. And...
How long were you there before your dad went there?
I don't know, maybe between 5 and 10 minutes. Poor Mom. She didn't deserve this at all. She didn't.
I do.
I'm like, what the hell happened? And I looked into the dining room looking around, and I said, Jesus Christ, your desk and all his papers and the drawers and everything was torn open and strung around. I'm like, Jesus, somebody's fucking been here and tried to rob the place. And he said, he didn't say anything, he just knelt down and grabbed a revolver and went to her.
Bob Bianchi, Misty Maris back one last time here. Misty, we had a procedural mess in this case. The state just over the weekend turned 121 files over to the defense. How does the state manage to hold on to that stuff until the middle of trial and then suddenly it materializes?
Yeah, that was actually pretty shocking because the defense is claiming that it's all exculpatory evidence which has to be turned over right away. Obviously, that's the type of stuff that a defense is going to use in the course of the trial. So it's a pretty weird situation. We'll see what the court thinks about that.
Bob, today the defense called a forensic pathologist to say that the victim, Shirley Carter, had probably, in that expert's opinion, been dead for about 2 hours before the 911 call. In other words, the defense is trying to destroy the state's timeline, saying, no, it couldn't have been the son because he wasn't on the property.
Well, that's a major thing, and I want to add to what you just said a minute ago. The discovery violations, if the court allows this to go out, are going to be pretty brutal. It's not just they were denied exculpatory information. They were denied information that could have been used in cross-examination to attack the credibility of witnesses, and it became very clear that the police were working with the civil team attorneys in violation of a court order in order to try to pin the defendant to this. This thing, Aaron, with all due respect, as a former homicide prosecutor, stinks, and the prosecution can't get out of it simply by saying, we didn't know the police had the reports. They're responsible for knowing. If I were a judge, honestly, based on this deception, I'd throw this case out.
Well, look, I can see that happening, but a lot of times you see these judges, they just say, okay, well, I'll let it continue, and if it results in a conviction, then we can deal with it on the appeals end. But is that really the way it should be done?
It shouldn't be the way it's done because somebody has to spend time in jail, be subjected to the things that a conviction brings, have to go through appeals, spend money, and the families get ripped through all of that too. This is enough of an egregious violation, Aaron, where not only should it be dismissed, it should be dismissed with prejudice because it was clear, deceptive conduct by the prosecution.
Harsh words from Bob Bianchi, Misty Maris. Appreciate both of you joining me on the debrief tonight. It's all the time we have today. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock with this live recap of cases nationwide. Good night.